Hey, beautiful. It's me, Jennifer Jayde. Hey, I'm both on Instagram and on Facebook here. I'm doing Instagram Live for the first time, so see how I like that. Anyway, I just wanted to share for you, maybe also a little bit for myself, um, that today marks the end of what was once a completely impossible dream that I had. For those of you who don't know, ever since I was 8 years old, when I was placed my first camera in my hands, I was obsessed. It was like my third arm. It went everywhere with me. I took photos of family. I love still photo and video actually, and I had the camcorder with me, it just so happened that we moved into a house where the previous owner was a photographer, and I learned how to develop photos in the dark room and all these things with my mom, and then all through high school for fun with my friends. Hey, thanks for joining me, you guys. All through high school, what I did for fun was stage photo shoots with my friends, and I didn't think that was weird. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think, oh, one day I'll be a photographer. I was just having fun, and I loved it, and I was like, isn't this what all people do with their friends in high school, stage photo shoots? Then when it came time to really make a decision, I was in 12th grade, I was 17 years old, and it came time to make a decision, like, well, where am I gonna go from here? And I was very driven, very ambitious, and I've explained the backstory of why that was the case before, and I don't know if you bought Dear Limits, but I explain it in that book. But I didn't know where to channel this energy. And then someone came into the class and said, well, if you never had to worry about time or money, if you never were limited in any way, how would you be spending your days? And it was the light bulb. The light bulb flashed in front of above my head, and it was like, I would be taking pictures all day. If I could take pictures all day, if I could travel the world to beautiful locations and take photos of couples, like just celebrating the most beautiful emotion of love in the most beautiful locations, like that would be it. Like that would be my dream. Is that really real? And I get goosebumps. I'm like, okay, how do I make this happen? And I would go home and I would study like Art Institute of Seattle, which is close to Vancouver Island, where I live, where I was from, where I grew up. I would search out how do I learn how to become a photographer? How do I do this? How to become the best that I can be? And as I was doing this research and putting together applications, hi everyone, thank you for joining me. And to Instagram, this is my first time doing Instagram Live, so thanks for being here with me. How do I turn this into reality and making my applications? And finally, for the first time, I admitted it to a friend. And I said, I am going to be a photographer. I said this to a really close friend of mine. We were in a grade 12 class, and it was the first time I actually breathed it out loud to someone other than my mom. And he looked at me and he said, have fun being broke for the rest of your life. And I explain in the book Dear Limits that I co-authored in, if you happen to see it, I explain that I come from very humble beginnings, and I saw what broke looks like, and I saw how much anxiety and stress that caused for my mom growing up, and I didn't know what I wanted to be all these years growing up until that moment, but I knew I did not want to be broke. I didn't want to be stressed and full of anxiety. I didn't want to be just making it by barely month after month. I didn't want to live that way in my adult life. So that was the dagger for me, and that popped my balloon, and I was done with photography. And I was like, yeah, I need to be more realistic. I need to go into finance. I need to get a haircut and get a real job. So I went into finance, okay? And anyways, let's fast forward this story a little bit. I know many of you have heard this before. I grinded, I hustled, and I grew a successful mortgage broker practice, and I'd grown it. I checked up all the boxes. I got the house, the car, the husband, the beautiful wedding, all those things. And around my mid-20s was when I was like, okay, I'm checking the boxes, and I'm working my butt off here to do that. And I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. And my income hit a certain threshold. And even when it increased, nothing, no more sense of fulfillment, no more sense of purpose or happiness that I thought I would have when I checked all those boxes. And then it was like, remember photography? Remember that thing you really wanted to do? Remember that thing that your inner self told you to do in the first place? Remember that? And it was around this time that our family suffered a really devastating loss. And it really awakened me to the fact that tomorrow is not guaranteed today, and that I didn't want to live 40 years of my life in a windowless office where I was feeling very dimmed and very drained and lethargic and inauthentic and not aligned with my soul being at all. I wanted to live my life now because tomorrow is not guaranteed today. So I started making the transition. I didn't walk out the door that day and be like, I'm out of here, see you fools later, and pick up a camera and head off into Never Never Land. I made a transition over the course of a year into my photography business. So I sought out mentors. I sought out the best of the best that I could possibly find. I asked if I could shadow them. I asked if they would mentor me. I asked if they did workshops. I asked, how can I soak up as much of your expertise as possible, both on the business side and on the craft of photographing. And so I learned about that. I learned about branding. I learned about presence. I learned about vulnerability and putting yourself out there. And I started my photography business. I was full-time photographer on June 1st, 2012. Greatest day of my life. I feel like I was reborn. And I had, at the end of that summer, it was my first full-time summer as a wedding photographer, I felt like I was flying. I felt exhilarated. My exhilaration was tenfold the amount of paralyzing fear that I had to face and move through in order to actually leave my job behind, leave finance, leave the income that I knew would be there, leave that behind was paralyzing, but I moved through it anyway. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but the reward was tenfold. I almost felt like, is this real? Have I died? Is this really possible? And then I had this whisper in the back of my mind at the end of that first full-time summer in 2012, and it said to me this: the only thing that could be better than this would be showing other women how they can do the same. And I heard that little whisper. I've got goosebumps down both my arms. And I was like, what does that mean? Get back to work, get to editing, start booking more photos and more weddings. So I did. For the next few years, I did more weddings. Loved it. I was photographing in Hawaii, Australia, the Caribbean, went over to Europe to learn from a mentor in Paris. I started winning awards, started, raising my rates to higher than I ever thought I'd be able to call in. But that tapping got louder, and by 2014, it was pretty loud. And then by 2015, I was feeling like really starting to become aware that my exhilaration for the business of photography was gone. And it was really terrifying to me because I didn't know what I would do next. And I was filled with self-doubt. I was really filled with shame, actually, because I had started and created a finance business. Then I left that and I started and created a photography business. And now just a few years later, I'm going to move on again. Like, what's my problem? Why can't I just pick something and stick with it? Do I have some upper limit problem? Am I self-sabotaging myself that anytime I get some success, I have to drop it, move on and start from scratch? What's my problem? What's wrong with me? Why can't I just pick something? And finally, instead of going against myself, I said, you know what? Let's listen. Let's listen. What's going on here? What am I supposed to be doing? I started working with a life coach. I started asking myself questions. I started figuring out what it is I really want to do. And then guess what? August 2015, boom, exactly 2 years ago. It might even be to the day. I remembered that thought I forgot from 2012 that said the only thing that could be better than this would be showing other women how they could do the same. And I was like, oh, I get goosebumps again. And so it was around the end of August. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what coaching was. I didn't know that this was an actual thing that people do. I had no idea. I had no clue how I would move forward with that one thought. So I didn't actually start the business. I hired a coach in September of 2015, and we couldn't get started till October, the third week of October 2015. So that's when I started the business that I have now. And the business that I have now fulfills me like nothing ever before. I just, photography was amazing. It's an amazing creative outlet. It's amazing to create something you once thought was impossible. But to do something where you feel like you're in service to others in such a powerful way that really aligns with your soul, that says to you, this is why you were born, this is why you're here. That is the most greatest feeling I could ever ask for. It's probably the most joy I've ever known, more than I'm even finding the words to express to you right now. And what I'm talking to you today is because today I'm photographing my very last wedding ever. So I stopped booking weddings, when in spring of 2016, last year, because I knew that I was moving on. But this couple had booked me 2 years ago. They actually booked me in 2015, and I love them. I still love them. We meshed so well. I know that I was meant to be a part of their day. I know that I was meant to photograph their wedding. And maybe that's why we were brought together 2 years ago, because otherwise it wouldn't have happened. But I'm photographing my very last wedding today. And what I want to say is this. What seems like an impossible dream to you today, if you will have the courage to take one step forward and then another step forward and another step and another step, and eventually you'll go from crawling to walking to running to sprinting to flying, will actually just be the beginning of even greater dreams that you can't even imagine right now. So I wanted to share this moment with you, the last wedding that I'll ever photograph, because oh, don't get emotional, I just did my makeup. The last wedding I'll ever photograph. Oh gosh, Jen, come on, pull it together. We just finished the makeup. Gotta go shoot this wedding. And this once seemed completely impossible. It once seemed completely out of reach. So much so that I delayed it for almost a decade. I put it aside for almost 10 years of my life because I didn't believe it. And it took me getting so unhappy and so uncomfortable and losing a family member to finally be like, maybe I'll give it a try. Maybe I would rather get to my deathbed knowing that I tried and failed than never knowing what could have been. So I speak to you today because this dream of wedding photography ends today. One seemed completely impossible, completely out of reach. And it wasn't. I just had to take one step forward and another and another. And I didn't know if it was going to work out. I didn't know if I was going to be successful. I was terrified. I had a mortgage payment, a car payment, bills, everything. I had no idea why I was leaving this generous finance income to go take pictures for a living. I thought I was losing my mind. I asked my best friend, am I going crazy? Silly. This is the dumbest thing I've ever done, to walk away from a good job with good income to go take pictures for a living. And I surround myself with very high level, supportive, loving friends, very particular with who I spend my time with, and I'm so thankful that she said, Jen, get your ass out there and start taking photos, and I did. And that was the beginning of where I am now, which is feeling even more happier than I was when I was traveling the world taking photos for a living. So I still love photography. I love it as a creative outlet. I'll always have a camera in my hands. It's part of who I am. It's just the business. I don't want to have to squish and squeeze an income out of photography anymore. So I'm going to go enjoy this day. I'm going to go shoot this wedding like it's the last wedding I'll ever shoot. And I just wanted to share that journey with you, because if you think your dreams are out of reach, if you think they're impossible for you, I want you to know that dream is just the beginning for you. And if you will create the courage to just take steps 1 and 2, steps 3 and 4 will be revealed to you, but not until you've taken steps 1 and 2. You cannot see the entire path to how it's going to happen or if you're going to be successful in advance. I know your head wants to see it. Your head wants to know, well, am I going to be successful? How am I going to get the income? What if I can't feed my kids? What if I can't pay my bills? And if you allow your head to lead the way, you will always stay stuck. If that's how you're feeling, your head will keep you stuck. When you allow your heart to start taking the reins, when you start listening to your inner guide who knows everything, that this shortest path to your most abundant happiness, when you start trusting it without understanding why you're trusting it, or if it's going to work out, or how it's going to work out, or if you're going to be successful, take steps 1 and 2, and steps 3 and 4 will be revealed. Take steps 3 and 4, and steps 5 and 6 will be revealed. Please, I urge you, live your life. We don't know how many days, hours, minutes we have left. Start now, start today. I'm off to go shoot this wedding. I love you. Thank you for listening. I'll see you soon. Thank you, Instagram, for being here with me for the first time. I love you.